Okay, Michael. Great. Good evening. This is the meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Village of Sleepy Hollow. Will you please rise with me as we recite the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing. As many of you know, we use this opportunity in our meetings to remember those members of our community who have passed since our last meeting. And since our last meeting, we lost Marjorie O'Brien of Kendall Way, Clara Eldridge, also of Kendall Way, and Margaret Lukovic, a lifelong resident of Sleepy Hollow in North Tarrytown. Something quite remarkable about these three women. Marjorie O'Brien was 105. Claire Eldridge was 105. And Margaret Lukovic was 106. So, very long lives. Doesn't make the pain of their loss for the families any less, but wonderful to note that. So, please, a moment of silence. Thank you. Please be seated. Okay, first up we have a warrant which was distributed earlier. If you have any questions on the warrant, please direct them to the treasurer. For the record, the warrant is $457,529.21.
Move adoption of the warrant.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed or abstentions? The warrant is approved.
Thank you.
All right, we have the minutes of February 28th and March 14th and March 21. We'll take them one at a time. Any changes to the minutes of February 28th?
No changes. Move to approve the minutes of February 28th.
Second it.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed or abstentions? And the minutes are approved. The minutes of the 14th, any amendments or edits needed?
Motion to approve the minutes of March 14th, 2023.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed or abstentions?
I'll abstain.
Please note the abstention for the record. And the minutes of the 21st of March.
Motion to approve the minutes of March 21st, 2023. Seconded.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed or abstentions?
I'll abstain as well.
Please note the abstention for the record as well, and then minutes are approved. A couple of announcements. First up, of course, I want to give my congratulations and best wishes to Martin Rutna, our incoming mayor here in Sleepy Hollow. Congratulations on your election victory last week. I've had the opportunity to think about my tenure, reflect on my tenure here in Sleepy Hollow as mayor. And I think it's in a much better place than it was when I first became mayor. Together, we've made a lot of progress. And I outlined the major points of that progress during our recent campaign, but most voters obviously didn't pay much attention to it. So I'll just skip the recitation right now and leave it to history. I would like to take a moment to thank a few folks, and certainly those members of the board and previous boards who supported and contributed to and who were instrumental in that progress. We can all be proud of what we've accomplished. And I also want to acknowledge two people. First up is Lynn Moffett, who's always been there as a confidant, a sounding board, a writer, editor, strategist, my wife and still my best friend. I can't thank you enough. I'd also like to thank my family and especially some belated thanks to our son Douglas. He'll know what I mean. And I also want to thank Janet Gandolfo, who's an early supporter, but more importantly, in my early years as mayor, was a mentor and a dispenser of sage advice. I want to say good luck to the members of this board, Deputy Mayor Scaglio, the rest of you. It's been great working with you. It's all in your hands now, and you've got a lot on your plate. The village has some major projects underway, some others literally on the drawing board. We're in good financial shape. That's where you nod your head, Sarah. Okay, thank you. Okay. And this continues to be an exciting time for the village. So I want to thank the many voters over the years that supported me. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to serve here in Sleepy Hollow. Dramatic pause. And then moving right on to other announcements, I want folks to note that due to construction, the parking lot at Morse School, construction in the parking lot at Morse School, that parking lot will be closed to overnight parking from April 1st to April 8th. So that's a big chunk of our downtown parking. So I know it's going to be a scramble for a lot of folks. So just a heads up, and I know that an email went out from the village on that as well. Okay, we'll move on to reports. First up is Matt Arone for the Recreation and Parks Department.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Board. Tonight we're going to discuss upcoming budget, but before I do, there were just a few park items that I wanted to mention that were important that I wanted to get out there to report to you. As you guys know, the Lighthouse project is ongoing, and we've been meeting every other Friday with the county and the architects to get the updates. The Lighthouse is rescheduled to open by the fall of this year. And here's some information from our last meeting. There is a barge at the site working right now on the Coffer Dam. Window installation is ongoing on the upper level, which is the round window frames. They are done with the removal of all interior paint. They started sanding and priming the exterior thanks to the warm weather. The exterior will be fully painted by the July 4th fireworks. And a discussion with the architects, county and village needs to be scheduled soon regarding how we will proceed with the gate, the security gate at the bridge. We have another meeting Friday this week. The bigger project is the bulkhead project at Kingsland Park. Since the weather has been good, they're going to start working south along the shoreline now. They're pouring concrete for the sidewalks along the river and the park, and began working on the 500-foot-long wall on the south portion of the park. They should be about 25 feet off the shoreline inside the park, and we shouldn't have any concern about the park goers. The village has told the workers to keep going as long as the playground, dog park, pavilion, and walking path to the lighthouse and the South Beach are still accessible. A change order has been approved, and the northern wall at the end, toward the entrance of the park will be repaired in its entirety in the final stages of this project. Future access to the current work area on the ball field and the lawn is uncertain until the time frame of when grass seeding can be decided. This depends on the work schedule and the weather. We did meet with them today, and they are starting to clean off the Great Lawn right now, so they are moving south, but still it takes a long time for them to get all that equipment off, and then they will do some grass seed in the spring. If they run out of time in the spring, they cannot seed in the hot summer months of July and August, so that would seriously impact our fall special events in the park, so let's hope the weather stays mild. And one more park announcement. The delivery of the outdoor exercise equipment for Kingsland Park has been received, and the 6-inch curb has been built by our DPW. However, the project is on hold a little bit until the village and the county can iron out some of the details over at that site. So if you have any questions about those park announcements, I'd be happy to answer, or anything else.
What are your thoughts on the park access over the summer?
They're not good thoughts. I'm very nervous. What I'm really nervous about, to be honest, is the 4th of July, because as you all know, we have a huge crowd on the 4th of July, cars, pedestrians, out-of-town visitors. And I'm really worried about the current site where the construction is, and they've promised they're going to keep it fenced off, but if, per se, they grass seed in the next month or two, and we don't have that area secure, protected, I'm worried that people can get on that with the amount of people. As you know, like I said, the 4th of July is something as you've never seen before at that park. So I'm worried about that. And then also, as I just mentioned, if there's any delay, I'm worried about what could happen in September and October. So I'm being very pessimistic and scared about it until we get some good news about the grass seed.
And as far as closures or limiting people in there, have you given any thought?
We have been lucky because other than 1 week that they've asked us to close the park because they were doing some heavy construction near the entrance, we have been lucky that the park hasn't been closed and they're still maintaining that we won't have to close the park. However, as I mentioned, if there are certain areas that are blocked off and not safe, will we be able to, we may always be able to keep the park open to the public to go and picnic and walk and go to the dog park and the playground, but some of the events that we do between now and November could be in jeopardy. So we may have some serious decision making to do, depending. And let's just, like I said, let's hope the weather maintains. But it does impact a lot, and that's why sometimes I think I'm the only one scared in these meetings with the county, because I'm always asking, well, what about October? And they're like, what are you worried about October for? I'm like, have you ever been to Sleepy Hollow in October? That's all we worry about here. So let's just hope that they're able to get us on there.
But do you think we should plan ahead and just try to secure a place for parking spaces? Like maybe talking to Taritao and see if we can utilize the train station or something?
For parking for events?
Yes.
That's a possibility. And also, we've already been talking about some of our events there, that if we have to relocate the actual event, some of our bigger events, if we had to. So we already are, in our back of our minds having some ideas about what we have to do.
It's like a backup plan because we can just hope
Yes.
for something and we have
We
something in
to be
hand.
prepared,
Yeah.
Would it make sense to have the number of parking spots and limit the number of people who can park there for certain prime weekends or something, just to reduce the volume of people who can drive in as opposed to
That's a
walk?
good thought. That's a good thought. If you reduce the parking, you reduce the people in the park, so that could be potential. As of right now, there are some parking spots taken up already from the construction site. As they move south, hopefully the parking lot will get back to full capacity. But you do make a good point. If having somebody at the gate, limiting the cars, also limits the people in the park, that's a great idea. But then it goes back to the 4th of July, which is that's a whole different animal, which people park everywhere in town, including the parking lot. So it's a discussion that, we're gonna have to continue having. All right, for the upcoming 2023-2024 budget, I'm responsible for the parks budget and 6 other budget lines: youth programming, the recreation hayride, the after-school program, the recreation administration, summer camps, and adult recreation, which is our code word for senior citizen program. And there weren't many changes or increases in any of those lines, but there were a few, and I'll mention them, and then of course we'll open up. I'm sorry, you have a
Can you just
question?
tell us where the page is corresponding?
On the main?
It starts on page 27.
Thank you.
But she said it
I was
was-
using a different,
That's okay.
27.
Yes.
So I'm going to start with parks. If you can see, there's many park lines, including each park has their own special budget line. However, as I mentioned, not major increases in anything this year, but I would like to mention 2. The lighthouse, as I mentioned earlier, hopefully will be open soon, this year, during this budget year. Prior to COVID and prior to the construction, one of our goals, my goal and the village's goals, is to open up that lighthouse more. It's only has been opened once or twice a month, and we need to showcase that lighthouse more. I was able to start opening it more during the fall for all our visitors from out of town. Therefore, if we are going to increase the amount of times we're going to open it, that means we're going to have to increase the amount of chaperones and staff. So there is an increase in the amount in the lighthouse tour line to enable to support that. I would like, a goal of mine would like to have that lighthouse open every weekend, weather permitting, because of the amount of phone calls and the amount of tourists and visitors that want to come to that lighthouse, and especially if it's brand new. Another,
I'm just going to
Go ahead,
interrupt.
sure.
We had discussed programming, like actually having programming there. So that wouldn't be in this line
we
now?
do not have a lighthouse programming line as of now, because we've never done it before.
Okay,
That would be something in the future.
okay,
I would predict that for the 2024-25 budget,
okay.
especially because we're hoping the lighthouse will be open this fall, as I say, but I think that would be for a future budget as of right now, just the additional staff and opening the lighthouse facility would be our goal.
Okay.
And the only other parks item that had something that we have to look at, and maybe not right now, and there's no real dollar amount, is with the Riverwalk being open in the new park area down at Edge, there's definitely going to be an increase in many things: equipment, maintenance, staffing. So in the parks contractual expensive line, that may change either now or in the future. But there's nothing that we can really estimate quite yet until the village is ready to take over that property and look at it further. Do you guys have any questions about anything in the parks specific lines before we talk about any recreation lines?
Matt, I have a question, I guess, regarding Kingsland. Since we think that part of Kingsland will be closed for most of this calendar year, I mean, is it reasonable to think that we can cut the expenses related to maintaining?
It's an interesting question. As I mentioned before, I don't anticipate the park ever being completely closed. Therefore, we will still have to maintain it, we'll still have to mow it, we'll still have to staff it. There'll still be rentals where we'll still have to have our staff work. Our revenue may be impacted if there's times where we can't rent out all the facilities. But also, as a department head, I'm not sure I would want to make that decision by myself to decrease that maintenance line, and then once we're back open full in a year, we'd have to put it back up. I think that would be something that the board would have to make that decision. I understand that would help us for this year, but if you drop it severely, and then we go back to our normal scheduling, that would impact us in a future year. But your question is a good one.
And you may have to increase it after that as well, so it would be like an increase and an increase on top of that.
It could be, yeah. I mean, we're definitely gonna have a down year, I believe, with revenue, especially because the rentals at the pavilion, which is very close to the construction right now and where it's moving, I've been reluctant. A lot of people have called and asked about it, and I've told them the truth about that work. So I do see some of our revenue could be down a little bit this summer, but I've talked to the police chief, and we're still planning on staffing the booth and charging for parking. And of course, we'll charge for anybody that rents, but I do see a little impact this year until the park is open in full again.
Okay, thank you.
Do you anticipate any increased costs as a result of all the construction through extra staff to make sure people don't go into an area, or fencing or signs?
I don't anticipate that. There actually may be an opportunity that there may be times that we don't need to staff it as much if, for example, there's not as many events or not as many rentals. That could be an opportunity depending. But I don't foresee an increase for staffing, with the exception of, go back to 4th of July, if for some reason we need to severely staff that area with police and parks and DPW. But other than that, I don't foresee a major increase. Any more park questions for now? Okay, great. I may be going out of order on what you're reading, but I'm just gonna go through the other budgets and mention some things. Our youth program line is for any program that we run that involves, obviously, our youth in our community. One additional increase to our program expense line, which we have not added in the past, which we should have, and we neglected to do so, is our involvement of Folklore Urbano, which is the program that runs out of Kingsland Point Park, the summer camp that we help fund. They've been doing that for 2 years now, and so we've been spending a little bit over our budget on that until we were intelligent enough to figure out why were we going over, and that was the reason why. So we've included that extra money for upcoming in the youth programming, but other than that, there hasn't been any increases in the youth.
That's on page 30,
Page 30, thanks, Sarah.
which is A7310.413.
But everything else in that expense line will stay similar. Does anybody have any questions about that additional programming or funding? The recreation / hayride line is a shared line with obviously some recreation special events and our hayride. Minor increase, I believe, in 7140-481. Sarah, what page is that, please?
Same page
Same
at
page.
the top, 7140.481.
In the Halloween expenses, and that's basically for the increases in the actual hayride and the events we're doing. We do a lot more Halloween events. We've done more than we ever have, and then also for any of the specific to the hayride, for the people that run that hayride.
Did you budget to add one more truck, or that we were talking about, having an extra cars?
That wouldn't be in this budget line, that would be in a different budget line. It wouldn't come out of the Halloween expenses. That would come in into probably DPW for extra workers and some personal services, which is
Okay.
for staffing. So that would not be in this budget. Any questions about recreation and hayride?
Well, just a point, I suppose, if I'm not mistaken, the hayride it at least breaks even if it's not creates a profit, I think, for the village each year, so. That's a good expense as far as I'm concerned.
We have an after-school budget, which is relatively new. I think this is only the second year we've added this after-school. It used to be part of the youth services, the youth programming, but after-school is one of our more important programs. So last year we separated it and we made it its own budget line. There's no increases in there, with the exception of some part-time staff salaries could go up as their salaries increase. Every time there's a new contract passed, their salaries go up a few dollars, but other than that, there's no major increases.
Yeah, I just want to go back to the hayride for
Sure,
one
I'm sorry.
second. No, that's okay. I thought about it thereafter. Is this the actual cost of the person who does the hayride as well?
I'm
Like
sorry.
the
It is,
animatronics?
it is included in there,
Yes.
yes.
So I only mentioned that because that's what we've done in the past. Are we looking to then do the same budget for that same amount for the future? Because we talked about other vendors.
Yeah,
and
right now,
committees.
we didn't have any, I didn't have any concrete numbers, so.
So what happens if we're looking for perhaps a different vendor, which would be a different cost? Would we want to consider putting some more money in that
It
budget?
could go up or it could go down
Yes.
also. Yeah, it could fluctuate. It actually.
Depending on if we
Yeah.
do one
Yep.
weekend versus 2 weekends.
Yep.
So
That's right.
can we keep that kind of as an open thing to really perhaps nail down before we close it, because that could swing greatly? And then I think it could be, if it's generating more revenue, then we cover the cost, but I think we can maybe see if we
On the
can.
revenue side, we put in the ticket amount that we received last year, because we didn't anticipate any more revenue coming in.
Okay.
So it would only be the expenditure side that would change as far as what we have right now.
Okay, so right now, pretty much we've set neutral,
That's right.
so, okay. All right. All right.
Unless anything, if anything's gonna change on the revenue side, then obviously we can change
Okay,
that.
that would be
But
the
I-
only thing I'd like to watch. Maybe we can accelerate a committee meeting before the adopted budget. That'd be great. Okay, thank you for that.
You're welcome. Any final questions about the after-school budget?
That was on page 31, by the way.
Page
Yeah.
The after-school program is also self-sufficient,
That's right.
including the full-time employees that work there. We haven't raised the cost of that program for many years, so that's something to consider, even though it is self-sufficient, but something to think about.
We bounced back quite nicely after the pandemic with the after-school program. The first year back, we had about 20 kids, and now we're at full capacity and have a waiting list, so the staff has done a great job, and it's been a good program this year.
Question regarding the revenues then. So with the after-school program price and the hayride price, we don't have to set those now during the budget process, right? We can do that later if we want.
If you want the revenue to reflect an increase, then we would have to consider that now.
Now.
If not, then we could leave the revenue as is, and then that would be a surplus.
Okay.
And as after school, we would set that prior to the beginning of that program in September if we needed to.
Yeah, so I'm thinking we have
Exactly.
time
Yep.
to consider,
We're not limited by what's in the budget.
yeah.
Right.
Somebody will be very upset if we lower the cost. But otherwise, we're not limited.
Summer camps, which is 7180, there was no change in the summer camp. As you all know, our teen travel summer camp had 2 years off because of the pandemic. However, we came back last year and had a great program. We hired 2 directors and 5 counselors. We pay for transportation, and we pay for the trips, and some miscellaneous supplies and t-shirts for the kids. And I was very happy this year because I'm interviewing for staff members, and a 18-year-old kid came in to interview for a counselor position, and he took out his cell phone and took a picture, showed me a picture of him in teen camp. So we've
Our team came?
Yes, so I almost had a tear in my eye that we've now come full circle, that kids that we started this program with now are coming back to work for the program. So that just right there showed me that we're doing the right thing with that program. And I don't know if I'm gonna hire the person, but either way, it depends it made me very happy that now that's what you want. You want them to be part of the camp as a kid and then want to work there as a teenager. So, but if anybody has any questions about the summer camp, like I said, there were nothing reflected in the budget this year. Recreation Administration, which is 7020. Sarah, is that on the same page?
It's the page before. 2 pages before. That's page 28.
28.
Page 28. I don't think according to my notes, there were no increases in that budget line either. That line includes full-time and part-time salaries. It also includes some office supplies and some software maintenance for our court reserve and our recreation registration program. And it also includes some professional development. So nothing major in there. However, longevity and salaries sometimes increase depending year by year. Does anybody have any questions regarding Recreation Administration plans? Okay, and the final budget line is 7620, which is our adult recreation line. Once again, our senior citizen line. What page? Do you have that? We'll get you a page number.
31.
Page 31. So this line, if the board and the mayor remember, we've had some seniors come to our meetings and speak up, begging me and requesting for some increases. I've met with the seniors numerous times over the past week, asking them to justify some of the increases they've been asking for.
33, sorry.
Page 33, sorry.
That's okay.
Some of the expenses of what the senior citizens do, as far as trips and lunches, have increased drastically after the pandemic. Some of the restaurants, they attend the lunches, the holiday lunches, the Mother's Day lunch, and some of the bus prices have gone up. So I have requested an increase, and I've discussed it with the village administrator and the treasurer. And so I just want to point that out, that I think there is a need for some additional funding for them in that line. But other than that, other than some utilities possibly going up, Con Ed and the phone bill, there's no major increase except for our program expense, which hopefully we're able to help them a little bit so they can afford some of the things they want to do. And that's, of course, depending on the mayor and the board and everybody, administration. Does anybody have any questions about our senior citizen programming or adult recreation?
So,
The senior center line also went up now.
I'm sorry?
The senior center line also went up.
no.
No, I think the utilities went up.
The senior program expense, it was 18,000, now it's 23,500, based on Matt's recommendation.
Actually, my recommendation was higher,
It
but
was
let's get that on the record. But I
His
don't want to get yelled at by the senior citizens tomorrow. Or
Yeah, that's true. His request is,
Was $15,000 higher.
yeah, his request was the 33,100.
So are there any questions about the senior citizen or any budget line we discussed?
So you can work within the 23.5 then, if you request.
I'm not making a comment.
I mean, you don't want to hamstring.
Those seniors, they get in my ear every morning, so I try my best to keep them happy.
Let me ask you, the Warner Public Library is in the mix of all of the line items. Is that your?
No,
that's
the
not
Warner
your-
Public Library is, I'm not responsible for that budget line.
Okay, is that, I just noticed because it's in between the after-school and
Yeah,
culture and recreation, but it's
It's its
separate.
own line. We get the budget from the Tarrytown Village, and it's voted on by a committee, and the mayor is on that committee. And has it been finalized, I believe? So that is the number that we get. We really have no control over that
Got
number.
it, okay. And we split it, I'm assuming, with Tarrytown.
There's a percentage,
Got it, okay.
so we have a percentage, and Tarrytown has a percentage.
Okay.
Based on population.
Population, yeah.
I have a hard enough time managing my budgets. I can't do the library every year. Any other questions from anybody? One final thing, Mr. Mayor, I just want to thank you for all your service and all the support you've given the Recreation Department and myself over the years, so I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, and it would be, this is the last time I'm going to be able to officially praise you, so I'm going to do that. In any business, in any government, in any organization, you know, you bring people on, you hire people, and sometimes you guess right, and sometimes you don't. And I'm gonna, one of the things that I'm gonna take with me is this memory that this is one of the times when we really guessed right when we hired you. And you've managed to do really amazing work with very little in the way of resources. And I know that's a weird thing to say in a budget meeting, but you know, you do a lot with very little, and we're just, everybody should be thrilled that you're here. And I am certainly, I feel that way. So I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're still gonna be here. And I know you're gonna keep on doing just incredible stuff for everybody here. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Matt.
Just to head things off for every other department head that's in the room, I'm not gonna go there, so.
We're not amazing like him.
Just gonna leave it alone. Come on, he does amazing work.
I agree.
Come on. It's,
So do all the department heads.
other department heads have more resources than you do,
There you go.
okay? So, I'm happy about where we are. It includes all the department heads. So, thank you, folks. And Mr. McCarthy, as, you know, I'm pretty sure I've never, other than read it out, I've never said the full name of your department in a
Don't
meeting.
bother, it's not listed in the budget. That's actually the first thing. You'll see that it's actually listed under safety inspection. So if you're trying to find it, it's actually,
Page 17.
17 would start with our expenditures. Overall, it's under the A 3620 lines, safety inspection. Basically, out of the proposed $722,000, about 7% of that is actually money that we have in contractual expenses to deal with. All in all, a lot of the increases that you'll see there is a result of actually filling our assistant building inspector position. So there's some incremental increases, you know, additional uniforms, another cell phone, another computer. And then the other big item is actually an upgrade in our computer software. So our municity permitting software, we want to upgrade from number 5 to 6. So there was an expense increase for that. And with that, we're asking for handhelds for the inspectors to be in the field, to actually document their inspections live. And one of the nice things about this new system is that property owners will have access through the internet to their property files. So they can see live what's happening with their applications, their permits, their inspections. It's a nice upgrade if we go for it.
Sorry, Sean, those handhelds, are those like fit for purpose gizmos, or are those, we're talking like iPads?
It's like an iPad, yes.
Okay,
And where is that is it software maintenance?
No, it's under computers, isn't it?
It's the equipment,
Got it.
point 200.
Okay. So that equipment, so it's not, it's going up 4,000?
Yes,
The whole
4,200.
upgrade is only 4,000?
No, that's just for the handheld.
Just the iPads.
Correct. The other line.
And then
we
the
have-
other line item for the
Yeah, there's
software.
actually a software maintenance line that goes up, and then
Yeah.
we also the computer
The
software.
wireless monthly.
Got it, okay. So those three things combined.
Yeah, all together. There are separate lines, but they all are
Need to
needed
work
for the same
together.
thing. Yeah. Other than that, everything else pretty much stays the same. Yeah, there's a slight increase with professional development, again, for, there are required certifications that we have to maintain to enforce the code. We have 24 hours minimum of additional training, so that money goes to that. Then other than those expenditures, usually there's a lot of discussion about the revenue. We're a little bit conservative with some of the permitting numbers that we have out there. And a lot of that obviously has to do with prospective projects down the river and what we're forecasting to come in the next year.
54.
So you're being conservative in abundance of caution, or?
Yeah, just seeing how the economy's going and how we're a little bit behind on some of the things that we anticipated getting this year that are pushing forward. Like, for example, we just got the plans in for the Chicos, which we actually expected them to be in the ground already. So we're sort of we kind of moved the goalposts a little bit back on some of the revenue projections right now, just to be cautious.
Denise was standing out on the street in front of the shopping bag waiting.
It's coming.
I speak for many people,
Yeah.
not just myself.
Just a quick, do you have a guesstimate on the Chicos, by the way? I've been telling people Christmas of '24.
So the last revision I just made to my dates was, assuming they get in the ground this spring, it's probably an 18-month opening. Meaning the building, what they're telling me is about 12 to 14 months for construction, and then they need time for setup and training. Because they're going to be preparing food there, cooking everything on site. We'll be hiring probably 40 to 60 employees. All that training will happen here in Sleepy Hollow. So there'll be a few months of setup before it's actually open. The building will look done, but they're on their way.
So maybe Christmas,
Yeah.
18 months.
Fingers crossed.
Orthodox Christmas, it's a little laugh.
But then some of the other projections were really based upon my last report, when I gave our yearly summaries last time I was here. We sort of floated that information forward. And on some of the sort of standard permits that we know we get all the time on additions, repairs, and alterations.
Have you seen more of that, or is it pretty steady, the non-Edge on Hudson stuff?
It's steady. It's a little bit of a drop off from, say, last summer. But a lot of that is also just the time of the year. So we usually have a little bit of a down, when I show you that graph during my monthly reports. Usually, December, January, February, they're lower in revenue based upon permits that are coming in just from homeowners. Right now, in March, we've already started getting some new work in. And then again, building up during the summer, we'll get more and more permits, usually as the weather gets better and people start their projects. That's all I got for you. If you have any other questions.
More than
Sorry,
usual.
It's
It's a lot for you.
a small budget.
No questions from me.
No questions.
Thank you, Mr. McCarthy.
And thank you, Mr. Mayor, for all your time, we've been here together, and also being my neighbor all these years.
And I promise not to move in on your street, okay?
I think there's some availability up there, so.
I'm not moving yet.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll continue with our budget presentations in the weeks ahead, as this board will continue that, as the village moves towards adopting a budget by the end of April. We'll move on now to public comments. If anyone would like to address the board, you may do so now. Please be reminded that you're limited to 3 minutes, and we'll start in the first hand that came up. Ms. White?
Ann White of Kendall Way. Mr. Mayor, I appear before you this evening to say thank you to you in public for your 14 years of service, bringing this village so far. You picked up the pieces of a village in trouble, half the revenue gone with the closure of the General Motors assembly plant. When I moved here 7 years ago, you'd already been mayor for 7 years. You're the only Sleepy Hollow mayor I've ever known. You welcomed me to be part of the future you were building. And look how far you've brought us. The foundation laid, and by now, I reckon, we must be up to the first or even the second floor. And I know you wanted to continue building, to hoist the roof beam and lay down the shingles, assuming you're not afraid of heights like my husband is. And of course, you'd finish it off with some special quirky touch and announce to the world, we do things differently in Sleepy Hollow. But it was not to be. Next week, right there in your chair, there will be a brand new mayor. A mayor who comes with a fresh new perspective, perhaps preferring a house that is not too tall, with bigger windows and solar panels on the roof. And yes, I know that was part of your plan too. My family once built our own house on an island, so I know how heavy that roof beam can be, how difficult to raise it and set it in place. We couldn't have done it without the help of the neighbors. Next week, we will have a brand new mayor. Like that roof beam, the burden he's taking on is really heavy, requiring many heads and hands to work together as one community, supporting our new mayor in his mission of leading Sleepy Hollow into the future. I thank you.
Thank you, Ann. It's been a pleasure. One tiny correction. It's not my chair. It's the village's chair. And the men and women that preceded me and the men and women who will succeed, this is not their chair either, it's the village's. But I'm honored to sit in it for the time. So thank you so much. Yes, sir.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Michael Solanti. I'm here to help my mayor and my trustees and my fellow citizens to make this community a better community. I have a few ideas, and a few complaints, and so I'll read them out. First of all, streetlights. 222 North Washington, 147 Valley Street, the corner of Bedford Road and Route 9 on the north end. Trash cans for Robertson Park still hasn't gotten a trash can or recycling bin. Recycling bins. I have an idea for how we can combat the litter on the sidewalks. When people are arrested for misdemeanors, they have to do community service. So I suggest they go out there and pick up the litter on the sidewalks. I'm not talking about the curbs, I'm not talking about the roadway, but just on the sidewalks to make this community more appealing. Number 5, municipal bonds. New York City had sold bonds to help them get out of their deficit. And I think it'd be a good reason, a good way to make this village more accountable by having people buy bonds of Sleepy Hollow with interest, of course, a big interest, but it will help reduce our deficit. Number 6, parking structure in the downtown area. Any business can't not thrive unless there's a parking availability. Not have to drive around the block 10 times and find a parking space. And number 7, I'd like to thank Mr. Mayor for his service, and hopefully we'll have a bright future. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Can I just interject 1 second? Anthony, do you know if the DPW is aware of the streetlight outages, particular ones that Mr. Solani is referring to?
If they're not, we'll make sure.
Okay, thank you.
Would anyone else like to address the board? Yes, sir.
Can we stand here?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm not going to make it as eloquent as the previous speakers, but Mayor, thank you for your work. And I'm sure the next mayor's got even bigger shoes to fill at this point. So I'll keep it short and sweet. 1 minute on this. Resident on DePeister Street, name is Dennis Xenos. I bought here about 7 years ago. I'd like to see if there'd be some kind of, we're finding a lot of traffic coming up on DePeister Street, being that it's a two-way street and narrow. And it's getting a little dangerous with the high school being let out. And we'd like to see if we can suggest that we make the portion of North Washington to Valley Street a one-way downhill in order to accommodate the flow of traffic, instead of where people are coming up from Valley Street or across to take the DePeister straight up to cut through the majority of the town. The high traffic area of DePeister Street has become a little overwhelming, especially during the fall. Obviously, we know all traffic in the area is overwhelming, but our street in particular. Second point, in light of current events that have happened within the schools, I'd like to see if police could bring another resource officer on board, if there's room in the budget for that. It's getting worse and worse as we see the news. Obviously, parents are concerned and having conversations about this and having very difficult conversations with their children about these sort of things. So an idea of possibly bringing on a second resource officer might be able to bring some kind of safety and or security to the community, especially in these difficult times. Personally myself, I'm actually in the parking business in Manhattan, in the Bronx, and I have seen the worst of the worst come through over there, and it's not getting much better from the city, and it's making its way north. So luckily, we have an exceptional police department here, but possibly if the budget does allow it, more resource officers, at least within a focus by the schools. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Just a quick response. Members of this board have raised the issue about one-way, two-way traffic flow in different neighborhoods of what I think of as downtown Sleepy Hollow. So essentially from Continental all the way across. And I think it's one of the things that this board in the future may continue to work on. I think everybody here heard you. Hopefully they'll take that to heart and actually do that, and which would mean traffic studies and other kinds of things to see how that's really going to play out. Secondly, on an SRO, we fund that together with the school. The school covers half the cost of a SRO, of the SRO, excuse me. And anything to increase that would be something we would have to work out with the school district. And the incident that you were referring to, you weren't referring to something in the schools here?
No.
Oh, okay.
The recent news within Tennessee.
Yeah, right.
Again, a conversation, a difficult one, because, father of 3, and I got questions being asked, so.
Yeah, not the kind of
It's
conversation.
hard answers to kind of try and provide that, between that and the why, and what can be done.
Yeah. Unfortunately, a discussion that we're going to have to continue.
So perhaps maybe I can suggest both of these fall under with Chief Poetti, and he's not here, so I'll be obliged to bring it forward and just have a conversation.
Certainly, yeah, the SRO, I think.
And also traffic. Would you?
I would disagree, but
then
after
DPW,
tonight, that's not
who
really
is
gonna
also not
happen.
here, and then DPW,
Yeah.
who is not here as well.
No, I think, it's the board deciding to engage in, something, but I think we're heading in that direction already. We're good. I know more on this.
I'm just going to,
Sure.
just really quick note, sir. I was on the
Okay.
committee a few years ago to bring back the SRO up at the high school. So it was definitely a conversation that has to be had with the school board and the superintendent. So, as I was on, like I said, I was on that. I think it's a great idea, but definitely something that we'll have to have a conversation with them. And I would suggest going to a school board meeting as well and just bringing it to their attention as well.
Sounds like a good idea.
Would anyone else like to address the board? Yes, sir. Mr. Clark.
Okay. I'm glad I brought my notes. All right. We're talking about the infrastructure of the village. We have a check for the state. I want to see this money spent on sidewalks and things that are tangible. I mean, well, not tangible, but permanent. I like the flower pots. Don't get me wrong, but let's put the money where it can be utilized in a more sensible way. I like a stop sign erected at the corner of Weber Avenue and Bedford Road. And the main reason is why it slows the traffic down, and it's a school zone. I mean, it's a parking lot, but there's no crosswalks on Bedford Road, but besides Hudson Terrace. All right. The painting on the crosswalks is it's not a complete job. I can mention one spot on DePice Street and Valley Street, the crosswalk is not painted. I'd like to see more community members, residents, come here to the board meeting to get involved with the community. I think the more people that are here, the more voices are heard, the more things can be done. Also, on the corner of College Avenue near Cortlandt Street, there's a fire hydrant, and there's a fire zone that I think you could add another parking space because it's more than 9 feet from the fire hydrant. The state law is that the the fire zone around the fire hydrant is 9 feet. 9 feet, east or west or north or south. But for every fire hydrant, the law states that you have to park within 9 feet. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Correction on the 9-foot traffic law is actually 15.
15?
15 feet.
Oh, okay.
Just let you know.
I was told it was 9, but.
No, 15 feet.
15?
Yeah, they mimic New York City. So state and New York City kind of like mimic the same laws, so it's 15 feet from hydrant.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'll make a correction on that. Thank you.
I'm sorry, what was your name again?
Dennis.
Dennis. I just got a message from one of the police officers downstairs. They said to tell you if you'd like to just go down, they'd be happy to talk to you more about the SRO and the other item if you have a few minutes after the meeting.
Sure,
From
I'm not getting arrested, am I?
No, Lieutenant Gasco said to tell you, relay the message to you, okay?
Appreciate it, thanks so much.
You're welcome. He's available if you want to ask him some more questions.
Sure, wait till after the meeting?
Whenever you want to go down, but he said he'll be there for a little bit.
Okay.
Yes, hang on. Yes, ma'am?
Just to this conversation, SHIAC is going to be launching a survey of people who are walking to and from their destinations in the village, and what their experience is of walking and where they find it feels dangerous to cross. And the purpose of this is exactly to get people, we're proposing to do it with QR codes at particular intersections. We're working with the PTA to, and we're not ready to launch yet, but so we haven't sort of publicized it. But I was sharing with Dennis that that will be going forward. And part of the purpose is to get more people actually out, filling out a very simple survey of what their experience is at those intersections. So then we can have more people engaged in this directly with the looking at their experience of walking.
Thank you, Ms. Black. Yes, sir.
I have one last thing, I'm sorry. I forgot 2 weeks ago when I came here, I forgot to mention it. I did mention it. I would like the village to give a proclamation of her service to Angela Martello for her service as a police officer, a firefighter, and EMS. I think it's a good thing. I mean, she's doing all 3 jobs. I mean, and she says to me, I'm just doing what, I have to do. No, she don't have to volunteer as a firefighter. She don't have to volunteer as an EMS worker. She is paid as a police officer, and she's a damn good one. So I would think to make this month an Angel Martello month. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We'll consider that. Would anyone else like to address the board? All right, I'll just remind you that we have another opportunity at the end of our meeting. If anybody comes up with anything else. And now we'll move on to resolutions. We have several. If somebody could take the first one.
Resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Village of Sleepy Hollow approving inter-agency agreement. Be resolved that the Mayor of Board of Trustees of the Village of Sleepy Hollow authorized the mayor of Sleepy Hollow to sign the attached inter-agency agreement with Northeast Westchester Special Recreations Inc. to provide therapeutic recreations for individuals with disabilities. So moved.
Seconded?
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed or abstentions? Resolution's approved.
Resolution of the Mayor and the Board of Trustees of the Village of Sleepy Hollow to approve proposal for the Fremont Pond Restoration Project. Whereas the village board is desirous of hiring an engineer to complete the Fremont Pond Restoration Project, and whereas requests for proposals for this work were solicited and received on January 13, 2023. And whereas a total of 5 proposals were received, and the village board has identified Langer Engineering as the most qualified to provide the service at a cost of $237,800. And whereas this project is being funded through a New York State Department of Environmental Conservation grant, now it be resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby approves the attached proposal from Langen Engineering to complete the Fremont Pond Restoration Project at a cost of $237,800. So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed or abstentions? Resolution is approved.
Resolution in opposition to the discharge of contaminated water into the Hudson River. Whereas Holtec International, the company decommissioning the Indian Point nuclear power plant, has announced its intention to release water from on-site radioactive fuel waste pools into the Hudson River. And whereas to date there has been no specific reporting of radionuclide, pardon my butchering of that word, contents of this water, which is heavily contaminated from the storage of the nuclear fuel waste. And whereas pre-release filtration to remove these isotopes has been presented as a solution to reduce the content of these carcinogenic contaminants to a level, quote, as low as reasonably achievable, unquote. And whereas the National Academy of Science has indicated that there is no verifiable safe level of these isotopes when they are ingested or inhaled. And whereas such pre-release treatment would not remove tritium, also carcinogenic, from the water. And whereas any contaminants in the Hudson River present the risk of entering the food chain. And whereas the Hudson River is an estuary that flows from south to north as well as from north to south, and 7 communities upriver source drinking water from the Hudson River estuary and its tributaries, namely members of the Hudson River Drinking Water Intermunicipal Council representing the city of Poughkeepsie, village of Rhinebeck, and the towns of Esopus, Hyde Park, Lloyd, Poughkeepsie, and Rhinebeck. And whereas the river also serves as a source of recreational activities and represents an economic resource that will be endangered by this action. And whereas tritium has a half-life of only 12.3 years, and therefore the contaminated water can be reasonably stored in enclosed tanks on site without interfering with the decommissioning of the waste pools, affording time to study alternative waste solutions and uses for the tritium. And whereas New York State Senator Pete Harcum and New York State Assembly Member Dana Levenberg have introduced the legislation, Senate Bill number S5181 and Assembly Bill A5338 respectively, which would ban release of radioactive waste into the waters of the state, including the Hudson River, by Holtec International or any other successor to be decommissioning from the Indian Point nuclear power plant. Now, therefore be it resolved that the Village of Sleepy Hollow opposes the plan to release over 1 million gallons of contaminated water from the Indian Point nuclear power plant site into the Hudson River. And be it further resolved that the Village of Sleepy Hollow hereby urges the New York State Senate and Assembly to adopt the aforementioned bills S5181 and A5338 and urges the governor to sign such legislation. And be it further resolved that the village clerk is hereby directed to send copies of this resolution to the following individuals and agencies: the Environmental Protection Agency, New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, New York State Department of Health, New York State Decommissioning Oversight Board, New York State Public Service Commission, Governor Kathy Hochul, Senator Charles Schumer, Senator Kristen Gillibrand, State Senate Majority Leader Andrea Stewart-Cousins, State Senator Pete Harcum, State Assembly Speaker Carl Heastie, State Assembly Member Dana Levenberg, State Assembly Member Mary Jane Shimsky, Westchester County Executive George Latimer, and the Westchester County Board of Legislatures. So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed or abstentions? Resolution is approved.
Resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Village of Sleepy Hollow approving Phase 2 of website design. whereas the Board of Trustees retained Schumacher Meats to redesign the Sleepy Hollow Connected website, and whereas Phase 2 of this project is to have the content coded and the final design completed at a cost of $3,240, and whereas the Village Board has reviewed this proposal and has found it to be acceptable. Now therefore be it resolved, the Board of Trustees hereby approves a proposal from Schumacher Meats of Ossining, New York to complete Phase 2 of the Sleepy Hollow Connected website at a cost of $3,240. So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to, just for the record, think that I'd like to put this one on hold. It's not my comment to put the connected right now, because I think that we need to review the website first as a complete package. So I'd like to just take a moment to pause on that. That's my recommendation.
So you're saying combine the Sleepy Hollow Connected, this project with
I think that
the
there's a
village
review and
website?
consideration to see what we're doing with the website, because we've collected all the data and the content. And I think there's still a little bit more further review before making a final decision, because I don't know if it would be under a consultant or perhaps somebody different that could do all of it.
So I think last week, I don't know if you saw that, I brought kind of this, is that the same, the idea that our village website potentially also needs an upgrade?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm on board with putting this on hold in that case.
Any other discussion? Then your option is to either withdraw the motion or to vote against it. So, not hearing.
I'm happy to withdraw that motion
Okay.
for resolution number 4.
All right, so we'll move on to the next one.
A resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Village of Sleepy Hollow to authorize mayor to sign Blackboard Connect agreement. Be it resolved, the Board of Trustees of the Village of Sleepy Hollow authorizes the mayor to sign the attached agreement with Blackboard Connect /Final Site to provide emails and text notification services and reverse 911 calls. So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed or abstentions? Resolution's approved.
Resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Village of Sleepy Hollow to approve documentary, whereas the Board of Trustees has received a proposal from Rita Lines TV to produce and broadcast the documentary that highlights residents of Sleepy Hollow, and whereas the documentary will be approximately 1 hour long, with the production taking 3 to 4 days, and whereas the cost of this production is $3,400, and whereas the Village Board has reviewed the proposal and has found to be acceptable, now there is to resolve, the Board of Trustees hereby approves the attachment proposal from Rita Line TV to produce the broadcast of a 1 hour long village documentary at a cost of $3,400. So move.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed or abstentions? Resolution's approved.
Resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Village of Sleepy Hollow to approve NICOM training. Be it resolved, the Board of Trustees hereby authorizes its members to attend the annual NICOM spring training in Bolton Landing, New York, from May 17 to May 19, 2023, not to exceed the cost of $1,200 per person. And be it further resolved, the Board of Trustees authorizes its members to participate in NICOM seminars at a cost of $25 per session. So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. All in any discussion?
Some of us have already signed up. Looking forward to it. Glad I'll be reimbursed.
You're about to be covered.
Yeah.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed or abstentions? Great, enjoy.
Resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Village of Sleepy Hollow to approve the MOA with the Teamsters related to an employee's retirement accruals. Be it resolved, the Board of Trustees approve the attached MOA with the Teamsters related to the retirement accruals for a village employee. So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed or abstentions? Resolution's approved.
Resolution 9, resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Village of Sleepy Hollow hiring seasonal staff for the Parks Department, whereas the Parks Department has remaining funds in this current budget year for an improved seasonal worker for the spring months. Whereas the Superintendent of Recreation, Matt Arone, properly advertised this position and has conducted interviews and has deemed this applicant qualified. And whereas Mr. Arone has recommended to hire this candidate on a seasonal basis. Now therefore be it resolved that the Mayor and Board of Trustees of the Village of Sleepy Hollow hereby approve Mr. Arone's recommendation of Christopher Adoricio of Dobbs Ferry, New York, to be hired effective April 3rd, 2023, at an hourly rate of $18, and be under the supervision of Mr. Arone. And be it further resolved, a background check for this applicant has been completed and is satisfactory. So moved.
Seconded?
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed or abstentions? Resolution is approved.
Resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Village of Sleepy Hollow to confirm mayor's appointment of intermediate clerk. Whereas there is a vacant position for a part-time intermediate clerk in the police chief's office to assist with daily operations. And whereas funds for this position are covered in the 2022-23 Police Department operating budget, and whereas the Chief of Police conducted several interviews and has recommended a candidate. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Trustees does hereby confirm the mayor's appointment of Rochelle Chalemi of Sleepy Hollow, New York to the part-time position of intermediate clerk, not to exceed 17.5 hours weekly in the police chief's office, effective April 12, 2023, at an hourly salary of $28. And be it resolved, said appointment is subject to a probationary period of 12 to 52 weeks and the approval of the Westchester County Department of Human Resources. And be it further resolved, said position will be under the general direction and supervision of the police chief. So moved.
Seconded?
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed or abstentions? Resolution's approved. I want to add another resolution to this evening's agenda. We received this communication from Angela Martello, Chief of the Sleepy Hollow Ambulance Corps, dated March 14th. Effective March 14th, 2023, Spencer Warnock took a leave of absence to pursue a career with the United States Army and will no longer be able to act as QA/QI coordinator. I have now appointed John Posca as the new coordinator. Please follow the normal course of action on this matter. Thank you. First up, thank you, Mr. Warnock, for stepping up and volunteering for your country, and good luck in your service. Secondly, I've distributed a resolution. It's necessary for us to pass this because there's a small stipend for the members of the ambulance corps, the member of the ambulance corps who provides this service. It's $600 a month. We have a similar one for our fire department, but we need to approve it. So in order to allow the ambulance corps to continue to function, normally it would be good if you guys could both read and then move and second this resolution so that we can get Mr. Posca up and running.
Okay, I'll do it. Resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Village of Sleepy Hollow authorizing retainer agreement. Whereas the Sleepy Hollow Ambulance Corps has requested the Board of Trustees hire personnel to complete paperwork mandated by New York State for quality assurance, quality improvement, and to file paperwork for revenue recovery. And whereas the Board of Trustees hereby authorizes the mayor and/or the village administrator to enter into a consulting retainer with John Posca to perform the aforementioned tasks, and be it resolved that Mr. Posca shall be paid the sum of $600 per month pursuant to the retainer agreement attached, effective upon mutual execution of the retainer. And be it further resolved that Mr. Posca shall be an independent consultant, not a village employee. Be it further resolved that the mayor and/or the village administrator is authorized to make and accept amendments and revisions to the attached retainer agreement so long as the same either are not material or are not contrary to the village's interest or responsibilities, and in either case are acceptable in form and substance to village council. So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded, thank you. Any further discussion needed? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed or abstentions? Resolution's approved. That completes our resolutions for the evening. Is there any old business or new business? If not, Ms. McCarthy-Tompkins, any communications?
No, Mr. Mayor, no communications. But I did want to thank you for putting up with all my nonsense over the years. Thank you.
Well, how does one respond to that?
I don't know.
Paula, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
And thank you. I do have...
Mr. Mayor, we would just, we all have a few words we'd like to say, if you'll allow us a minute, please.
Well, in a moment,
Okay.
if I may. Two things, two communications to the board. One is to the Board of Assessment Review. So I'm going to hand this one over to Mr. Posen. That I'm not sure if it's a new grievance or an appeal of a grievance, and I'm thinking it might be time barred.
Mr. Mayor, I believe that's an appeal.
It's an appeal?
Yes.
Okay. Then if you could review and circulate to the other members of the Board of Assessment Review and the incoming member as well. And I also just wanted to note that the Ambulance Corps also sent us a notification that they had elected new officers. Angela Martello or elected officers, in some cases re-elected. Angela Martello is the chief. John Posca, first attendant. Simon Cohen, second attendant. Joe Russo, chief driver. Mike Tavano, assistant chief driver. And Megan Raderstrong, secretary. So our thanks to all of them for their continued service to the Ambulance Corps and for stepping up and being officers. So thanks.
So we have a minute, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Rene Leon, one of the trustees of Village of Sleepy Hollow. First of all, thank you, Mr. Mayor, for this opportunity to work with you. I will say all these years, but 1 year here as trustee. But it seems like we have known for another few years before. I migrated to the village of Sleepy Hollow in 1995. I have seen grow and have seen the changes. I didn't get involved into political until like 2016. That's when I met Mr. Mayor officially, and since then he has been my mentor. I've been looking up to him and learning a lot from him. So I will, from my heart, thank you for this opportunity, and I hope we continue in communicating and learning some more from you for all the experience and all these years you have in politics. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I would also like to extend my thank you, I think for two things. One is I'm here because you reached out to me, and I would not be in this position if you hadn't suggested it and talked to me about it and convinced me. And so this is a wonderful experience. It's so, it means a lot to me, and I thank you for bringing me on board. And secondly, for your consistent leadership, not just for the year that I've been on the board, but I think that you set a great example in how to sail the ship, so to say. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both, and thank you for stepping up and not saying I coerced you into into running. I'm glad that you both joined the board. I'm glad that you both decided to run and were elected and are part of this board. I think the village is stronger for that.
But wait, there's more.
I don't know if the village is stronger.
Ken, thank you. The Village of Sleepy Hollow, New York owes you a great debt of gratitude for your 16 years of public service and dedication to our community. Although you inherited a village that was replete with problems, you had a vision of what a better, sustainable Sleepy Hollow should look like. Through your collaborative, nonpartisan leadership, and of course with the help of many people along the way, you led the village through a rebuilding phase after the catastrophic departure of General Motors, and what that meant to the tax base and the character of the village. I would say your governing style was far more influenced by Woody Guthrie than by Zach De La Rocha. Although your spirit is clearly a byproduct of one of your favorite bands, Rage Against the Machine. Yes, there's a little inside joke there. Maybe it is serendipity that baseball season is starting. You can spend more time enjoying your Yankees. For sure, you can spend more time with Lynn and your children and grandchildren. I know you also plan to do a little traveling. You deserve some time to enjoy yourself and just watch the contentment of Sleepy Hollow residents living in this village that is so much better off from having you at the helm. On behalf of everyone in Sleepy Hollow, I say again, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And there's even more to your right. Ken, when you talk about the time in the history, our history started with my appointment to the planning board. And almost 10 years ago, and now I'm here in my 4th term. The hours I put in are a fraction of which you have contributed to our community. Not only the longevity, but also the time invested in the pre-planning to get us to readiness every Tuesday. I personally thank you for that. The best part of the legacy that you created is that it's all yours, but it's for us to enjoy. And that's really what it means, is that you can walk with that. The even better part for you is the gift of time. Something great is in store for you as a result of your journey so far. Take pride in that you prepared projects, people, and departments to move the village forward. And the second part of that gift of time, which is priceless, right, is with your beautiful family. And I know you'll enjoy more with your wife, your children, and your grandchildren. So I leave you with this. You've created a blueprint of success, and that is a mayor. And I would say one with a signature hat, and that is in every picture that is posted in this town. So with that, my warmest regards to you, Ken. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
And one more, last but not least. Mr. Mayor, the village of Sleepy Hollow and the former village of North Tarrytown will forever be indebted to you for all that you have done for its residents. You have guided the village through a transformation like no other. We went from a down-and-out industrial town, reeling from the loss of its biggest source of tax income, to a gleaming gem on the Hudson, a bona fide tourist destination full of promise and potential. 16 years as a public servant, 14 years of that as mayor is truly a remarkable feat. Your dedication to the village and to its residents was evident. Your guidance during the uncertain times after the jam plant closed was like our little lighthouse navigating ships through the fog. Your vision for the future is now becoming a reality. A new neighborhood with beautiful new homes and parks, many years of level taxes, solidified our infrastructure, including a new water tank, and given us direct access to the Hudson River that no resident has had in over a century. The vision continues with the new DPW facility in the Common, all things that would not have been achieved if it were not for your commitment and your sacrifice to the residents. On a personal note, I'd like to thank you for taking a chance on a woman who had absolutely no experience in municipal government, none whatsoever. And in 2015, you and the Unite Sleepy Hollow founders recruited me to help usher in a new era of local government. You took a chance on me, a stay-at-home mom with a part-time job. You had confidence in me, even when I didn't have confidence in myself. You've always had patience for my questions and always took time to help me understand as I learned this role. Surprisingly, we agreed on many things considering our different backgrounds and beliefs. I have learned so much from you over the past years, and I'm grateful for the time and for the tutelage. This boardroom will not be the same without you and your dry sense of humor. I hope that the future finds you enjoying extra time with Lynn and your kids and your grandkids, traveling and cheering on our beloved Yankees. And I hope that when you're out and about, walking the dog, you stop and you take a look around, and you know that the village of Sleepy Hollow would not be what it is today without you, Mayor Ray. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We have a little thing for you.
I'm going to suck it in one more time.
Suck it in one more time. It's just a little token of all of our appreciation. So, thank you.
You get to take it with me. Thanks.
You'll be missed.
Yeah. Martin, I'm gonna leave the other one there, okay, but this one I'm gonna.
Oh, it's red.
That's
You earned
very cool.
it. You earned it.
Thanks so much, guys.
Let's get a picture.
Huh?
Let's get a picture.
Are
you taking a picture?
Okay, so.
We'll take it out of the plastic.
Oh, yeah,
so we can
Take
have
it
a
out,
nice picture.
please, come on.
Yeah.
I'm gonna show you, that's pretty cool.
You can put it back in after it's done.
I love that color.
It's a really cool color, too. I mean, partially colorblind, but it still looks.
Get closer, closer. Squeeze in a little bit. Okay, big smiles.
It is a smile.
Got it.
Okay, now look at me, please. Okay, gotcha.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for the very kind words from all of you, and even most of what you said was actually true. I'll talk about the other parts later, but right now I'm supposed to ask if anybody else would like to address the board before we end the meeting. Please, no, say anything, okay.
I just want to say 2 words, a little bit more than 2 words, just really quickly. I just want to say it was an honor and a pleasure working with you since 2010. I know it really doesn't feel like almost 13 years,
No,
right?
it doesn't.
Thank you for your guidance and your knowledge and your insight, and also your sense of humor, which I'm still not really sure I get all the time. But thank you for giving me the opportunity of being the treasurer for Sleepy Hollow and for hiring me. So thank you, and you'll be missed.
Thank you. I appreciate that. What?
Executive session? No, I'm just kidding.
Now that's the right.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen,
I do have some things that I want to say. So, I've always felt very fortunate to be the administrator of Sleepy Hollow. It's a great place. You've given me that opportunity. I gotta thank you for that. I'm proud of all the things we, staff and boards, have accomplished. And we continue to move forward, move this village forward, and try and finish some of the things you've started.
I thank you.
I also want to, on behalf of all the village staff, thank you as well. I know, especially the management staff is appreciative of all the things you've done for us over the years. So thank you. One more thing. One of the things the mayor and I work together closely on is the village officials committee. We meet once a month with villages from 6 villages in Greenberg. We talk about ways of sharing ideas, resources, and just commiserate. And they've given you a plaque here, in recognition of your service to the village.
Oh, thank you. Or convey my, I'll reach out to them and say thanks. Well, thank you. This one's cooler. Thanks very much. It's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure to, it's a weird thing to say it's been a pleasure because often it's not. It hasn't been a pleasure for you or any of you. It hasn't been a pleasure for me. It's just been really hard work. That's the honest part of it. But there's been some really great positive things that we collectively have managed to do, and it's my sincere, deeply held belief that this village is going to continue to advance and do really wonderful things. So look forward to watching that happen from the sidelines and you know, urging you all on. I know you guys are going to continue to make this a great place. So thank you for the opportunity. It's been great. Bingo. We are adjourned.